Folks, welcome back once again to another episode of the Friday Flows. On today's episode, what we are going to be going through is a spotlight onto one of our fantastic customers at GitLab. And the reason that I love this deployment specifically is really it shows a solution to the problems that Tynes initially set out to solve. When our founders, DK and Hinchy, had started Tynes, really it was predicated, yes, on solving a technology problem with SOAR, but ultimately it was really about solving the problem for the end user, the analyst, the engineer, who's completely burnt out with alert fatigue, has a lot of noise in their environment, and morale is low within their team. And ultimately, this is a serious deployment that allows you to kind of get insights into how powerful Tynes can be for not only streamlining operations and workflows, but ultimately making the jobs of the security people far more enjoyable for them and obviously increase morale, which is great because there's a human component to this. It's not just technology that we're talking about. So to share this a little bit deeper, right? Obviously, for anyone that doesn't know who GitLab are, if you've been hiding under a rock, GitLab is one of the most comprehensive AI-powered DevSecOps platforms for software innovation. Absolutely enormous amount of users worldwide, trusted by some of the biggest companies in the world to do what they do. And in using Tynes, again, there was a huge benefit to using Tynes for their security operations team and their incident response team, where they were able to save thousands of hours, reduce the burden of alerts using us. Now, to kind of give you an understanding of how this started, GitLab's incident response team was scaling operations and they were looking to improve efficiency. So they needed something that would allow them to do that. And obviously, Tynes being Tynes, we were able to tick those boxes and satisfy a lot of those requirements. So I think the challenge for the team is that there were automated workflows, and this is a common challenge for so many teams where you will have scripts in place, but ultimately when you are writing scripts for automation, there is a ceiling to how much you can do due to the time and resource intensiveness of actually building out automation in that way. So the idea of bringing on Tynes is we needed something that was going to be super flexible, easy to use, give them the speed that they need to obviously scale out their operations. Now, when we think about what Tynes was, or what the operation was like before Tynes, obviously small amounts of automation through scripting. The team was very much suffering with alert fatigue, noise in the environment, inconsistency when it comes to incident response processes. So any manual process that's handled by a human, especially in high volumes, is going to have a degree of risk when it comes to human error. Yeah. When we think about using Tynes, yes, automating 77 workflows here is fantastic. Yes, having effective alert management is fantastic, but really it's reliable automated workflows for really mission critical processes. It's being in a situation where when you build something in Tynes, it's a visual process map. It's standardized every single time that it happens. It's self-documenting for audit purposes or compliance purposes. And it just means standardization is one of the big things with Tynes, as well as just automation and getting time back. Now, when we think about what they achieved, some of the main stuff is like, obviously over the course of a year, 1,000+ hours is an enormous amount of time for a team to be saving with Tynes. 13 builders, right? So we think about like with a SOAR or people writing scripts like Bash, PowerShell, Python, like how many people within a security team are going to be able to be automating using those methods? Chances are you'd be lucky if it's more than 2 to 3. Usually it's probably 1 to 2. You know what I mean? When you think about Tynes, the ease of use, 13 people building in the platform, 77 workflows automated, and an 80% reduction in pager noise. Now, what do I mean by that 80% reduction? If we look at the top workflow here, so this workflow itself basically saved them 240 hours per year. And if we think about what was happening is the team at GitLab was getting paged for everything. So if they had an incident, right, they have obviously rotating shifts for the team, but ultimately if they had 24/7 on call, they could get paged in the middle of the night, not really contributing to the positive mental health and morale of the team. So to use, and this is a common use case with a lot of teams using Tynes, is they obviously use Tynes to initially triage and weed out false positives, so that when they actually get a report and they fill out a form, chances are that there's actually a real incident to be handled, as opposed to someone being dragged out of bed to handle it manually. So when we think about what they achieved with that workflow, they used to get paid for 100% of those alerts. Now that's down to around 20. Okay, so a fifth of the amount of alerts that they're actually getting paid for. So again, in terms of the morale and operational happiness, it's a life-changing workflow. So that's amazing to see. The other thing, like spam analysis, alert handling, but this is my favorite, documentation management. So obviously GitLab will rotate their teams based on shifts, and ultimately there's going to have to be notes that are put in place based from the previous shift for the next team who's taken over. Shout out to Valentine for making this for part of the You Did What with Times competition. It's absolutely hilarious. So basically, they built out a workflow that is basically on the diligence to write out the notes for the following team. If you don't write the notes out, your hand of got you is going to be negatively affected by the notes that are written if they're not done correctly, which I absolutely love. And it just shows the not only obviously security use cases, but this is a real thing that's just, you know, fun, and it's for the technology itself, for teams using it. It's yeah, it's really, really cool to see. So we can get an indication there. The other things I'd say, obviously we can't show you exactly what workflows that the GitLab are using, but, you know, to think about the PagerDuty one, you know, if you go into our library here, you'll find all sorts of use cases for incident response, you know, remediate PagerDuty alerts, you know, so it's probably not a million miles off what's being used there. So again, folks, you know, this is a prime example of one of those deployments where automation was key to not only a team being more efficient, but a team being more happy. And if you do struggle with alert fatigue or high volumes of manual work, I could not recommend anything more than checking out Times, especially our community edition. You know what I mean? The technology, the proof's in the pudding. Check it out, get your hands on the community edition, start checking out the workflows in the library, start using it, and ultimately, hopefully, you can start automating at scale and getting yourself to a point where you're happier in your day-to-day if there is a need to do that. All right, folks, that's our Friday flows for today. Hope you enjoyed getting some insight into that deployment. Any questions, let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed it, like and share, and obviously check out any of the linked workflows and community edition below. Thanks, folks. Catch you in the next one.